federal drug agents. The third man is Baton Rouge pilot and soldier of fortune, Barry Seal,
be very careful
described by some law enforcement officials as one of the biggest arms and drug smugglers in the country. But it was Seal, not the drug agents, who asked us to videotape the meeting. This rendezvous between Barry Seal and agents of the Federal Drug Enforcement Agency took place outside a motel near Miami International Airport.
For decades, there have been rumors, and a little more than conjecture, with some evidence that rogue personnel in the CIA, DEA, and NSA were running drugs from South America to fund their clandestine operations with regard to supplying weapons to Iran and the Contra rebels in Nicaragua, bypassing congressional scrutiny. One of the primary players in this long-running saga was a pilot named Barry Seal, but he was not alone. Seal and his friend, William Roger Reaves, was one of the most prolific drug smugglers in history. Let's look into who they were working for and what happened. Who were Barry Seal and William Roger Reaves? Why were they involved in drug and arms smuggling? Who did they work for? Why were they targeted by all parties concerned? Hello, I'm Colin Heaton, former history professor, Army and Marine Corps veteran, and welcome to this episode of Forgotten History. Barry Seal and Roger Reaves were pilots who basically worked as mercenaries, flying cargo for anyone without any questions being asked for a paycheck. Their connections spanned the greatest drug lords in modern history. Barry Seal and Roger Reaves had been working for the cartels as well as U.S. law enforcement agencies and intelligence agencies due to their connections and reliability. Seal had served previously in the 20th Special Forces Group and the CIA when he was already a licensed pilot who also bought and sold aircraft all over the world. Roger Reaves grew up in a poor farming family in the town of McRae in Telfair County, Georgia, later becoming a pilot, and he flew at least $1.5 billion worth of drugs, mostly cocaine for Pablo Escobar, Fabio Ua Vasquez, and Jorge Ochoa and the Medellin cartel. Their drugs came in by aircraft, primarily into Louisiana, Arkansas, and Florida, but Reaves was well established. He was smuggling drugs, guns, and money in and out of Asia, Africa, Australia, and Europe for about 10 years, sometimes by airplane, other times on boats. According to Reaves, I did it for the money. Yes, there was a genuine excitement and major thrills in flying over shark-infested waters, or getting chased, or beating the system. But bottom line, it was about money. I made around $60 million in 10 years. Barry Seal started flying at age 15, flew weapons to Fidel Castro in 1958 during the revolution, and in 1964, Seal flew for Trans World Airlines, and he was their youngest 707 captain and later their youngest 747 captain. After his 1972 arrest in New Orleans on charges of flying explosive to anti-Castro Cubans in Mexico, TWA fired him. The buyer, it turned out, was a federal agent. Soon after that, Seal turned to drug smuggling and subsequently was arrested in Honduras with 40 kilos of cocaine worth a reported $25 million. Seal spent 9 months in a Honduran prison, and while there met William Roger Reaves. Reaves had been Ochoa's New Orleans business manager. This was when Reaves brought Seal into the 1982 Medellin cartel consortium after Jorge Ochoa and Pablo Escobar joined forces to form a 2,000-man army to deal with the Marxist revolutionary group M19 that was endangering the business for their cartel. Upon meeting Escobar, Ochoa, and others, Seal's and Reaves' career took a turn. With the cartel needing more planes and pilots as their network was extensive and expanding, in his memoir, Smuggler, Reaves claims that Seal himself paid millions in bribes to the Clintons when Bill Clinton was governor of Arkansas in order to land planes carrying cocaine at Mena, Arkansas, when Clinton's brother Roger Clinton was working as a drug dealer. See our video on Bill Clinton and Roger Clinton. In 1984, Seal was indicted in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, on charges of smuggling and money laundering. Facing a 10-year prison sentence, he decided to flip, but federal prosecutors were not interested in a deal, so he simply went over their heads. He flew to Washington and met with two members of Vice President George Bush's task force on drugs. In his secret testimony before the task force, Seal said the Medellin cartel had cut a deal with the Marxist Sandinistas in Nicaragua, allowing the cartel to give a cut of the drug profits to the Sandinistas in exchange for use of an airfield in Managua. President Reagan was eager to wage an all-out war on the Sandinistas, fearing another communist regime in the Western Hemisphere, and Seal was enlisted as an undercover informant for the Drug Enforcement Administration.
Of living an exciting life is high. You can't sit in Baton Rouge.
Seal had a C-123 transport called the Fat Lady, carrying tons of cocaine for the cartel.
June 24th, 1984, Managua, Nicaragua. The man in the striped shirt is Pablo Escobar Gaviria.
Our mission was coordinated by the CIA and the Drug Enforcement Administration of the United States.
Pablo Escobar is described by law enforcement officials as one of the top cocaine barons in the world. The man facing the camera is Federico Vaughn, an aide to the Interior Minister in Nicaragua's Sandinista government.
The camera was mounted here on this bulkhead by the CIA. They had a remote control camera enclosed in an electronics box with a small eye on it so that it looked like an electronic gizmo inside the airplane.
The man wearing the fatigue hat is a Nicaraguan soldier.
We got the airplane completely ready to go, and about 5 minutes before departure time, the Army brought in the truckloads, duffel bags full of cocaine, and they were loaded on board the aircraft by the Cuban and Sandinista soldiers.
These recently declassified photographs were secretly made by Barry Seal during an elaborate sting operation, a mission spanning from South Florida to the jungles of Colombia and into Managua, Nicaragua.
As part of his agreement with the DEA, he rigged the C-123 with a hidden camera and was able to photograph Pablo Escobar helping Nicaraguan soldiers load 1,200 kilos of cocaine at the Managua airport. Reagan was ecstatic and went on national television shortly thereafter, waving the photograph given to him by Lieutenant Colonel Oliver North and denouncing the Sandinistas as drug smugglers corrupting American youth. As a result of Seal's cooperation, the judge in his Florida case praised Seal and reduced his sentence to 6 months probation.
Central Intelligence Agency and the State Department all along has known that the Sandinista government will go to any means to support and supply and finance their government, regardless of what.
In December 1984, Seal was again arrested, this time in Louisiana, for flying in a cargo of marijuana. U.S. District Judge Frank Polizzola was bound by the Florida plea agreement and was furious at being powerless to put Seal away. On December 20th, 1985, Polizzola sentenced Seal to 6 months of supervised probation, taking the occasion to say that people like Seal were the lowest, most despicable people I can think of. A condition of the sentence was that he had to spend every night from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. at the Salvation Army halfway house on Airline Highway in Baton Rouge. Polizzola further stipulated that Seal could not carry a gun or hire armed bodyguards. That was an apparent setup. But that TV presentation by Ronald Reagan would place Seal in great danger later. Meanwhile, Oliver North was working on the arms deal with Iran to obtain Iran's help in freeing 7 American hostages held by terrorists in Lebanon. The U.S. would conceal the transactions by selling the weapons first to Israel and then reselling them at significant off-the-books markups to Iran's Islamist government for use in its war with Iraq.
what I know is true, that Barry was taking a small amount of arms back to Central America and giving them to whoever, all of them.
Part of the $48 million paid by Iran to the U.S. for the Hawk and TOW missiles was in turn used to fund the Contras in their fight against the Marxist Sandinistas, and arms were being sent to Nicaragua. This was in direct violation of a 1984 law banning such aid. According to Reaves and Seal, among others, the drug money fueled the operation.
So he's taking his little planes and putting some AK-47s and maybe ammunition or whatever, and takes it down to the Contras against the Communist Party of Nicaragua, where we've been landing. And Oliver North was involved in this. So when all that, and so his CIA buddies was certainly involved, and we know they were.
Seal's attorney, Louis Unglesby, told Judge Polozola that his ruling amounted to a death sentence, and Seal, who told friends that the judge made me a clay pigeon, and he was right. At 6 p.m. on February 19, 1986, Seal arrived at the Salvation Army, and after he parked his white Cadillac, he was approached by a man carrying an automatic rifle who fired 2 quick bursts, riddled Seal's head and chest, killing him instantly. Then things started to unravel for the intelligence agencies because on March 3, 1986, Louisiana Attorney General William Gust hand-delivered a 5-page letter to U.S. Attorney General Edwin Meese. In his letter, Gust made a formal request for a complete investigation with respect to the government's relationship with the handling of Barry Seal, the cartels, and any deals agreed to. In October, as chairman of the Subcommittee on Narcotics and Drug Interdiction of the President's Commission on Organized Crime, he stated, "I had presided over a seminar at which Barry Seal had testified." Gust continued, "His purpose there was to inform the Commission and top United States officials of the methods and equipment used by drug smugglers, and he was scheduled to be a key witness in the government's case against Jorge Ochoa Vasquez, the head of one of the largest drug cartels in the world." Why was such an important witness not given protection, whether he wanted it or not? Gust asked in his letter using all capital letters. It would appear that the federal agencies, as well as the government in general, knew that Seal was a target, and getting rid of him solved a lot of problems, or so they thought. Suddenly, Seal's offshore bank accounts disappeared, and the IRS filed a multi-million-dollar lien against his assets. This included his home and all his airplanes, which were seized. Seal's wife was said to have found George Bush's private phone number in her husband's wallet. The C-123, which was seized, was ultimately sold to a company with connections to the CIA, and that was shot down soon afterwards. On March 27th, a state grand jury in Baton Rouge indicted Miguel Velez, Bernardo Antonio Vasquez, Luis Quintero, and Jose Renteria Campo for the murder of Barry Seal. In May of 1987, a jury found all 3 guilty of first-degree murder, and all were sentenced to life in prison without parole. Many others were also in the indictment but were not publicly named.
Seal's involvement in the joint CIA-DEA sting operation resulted in the indictment of 11 people, including 2 men reputed to be among the leading cocaine traffickers in the world. According to court documents, the case began to develop when Seal set up meetings with major drug suspects, including members of the family of alleged Colombian cocaine baron Fabio Ochoa. Ochoa's son, Jorge, has been indicted in the case, but not taken into custody.
Renteria Campo was later extradited to Miami to be tried on federal weapons charges. There was no word as to whether or not Meese ever responded to Gust's letter. Reaves himself said the cartels wanted Barry Seal dead after he gave his testimony and the photo of Escobar was on TV around the world, and that Fabio Ochoa himself had ordered the killing by sending a hitman named Ronaldo, whom Reaves knew only by that name, but he did know him. Ronaldo was probably one of the 3 men convicted in the murder of Seal. To this day, we do not know which of the hitmen was, in fact, Ronaldo, and Reaves will never say. Seal's lawyer, Unglesby, said the Medellin cartel killed Seal to prevent the extradition of Medellin cartel co-leader Jorge Ochoa from Spain, where he was hiding. Seal would have been a prime witness against him. U.S. authorities wanted to put him on trial for drug smuggling. It worked, Unglesby said. Ochoa wasn't extradited.
And so they said, all right, we're getting the guns from Iran, and we're taking cocaine to pay for them. Yeah. And since Congress won't give us money to fight this war, we're gonna circumvent it. So that was.
But then the caper took a darker turn when, on October 5th, 1986, a Sandinista patrol shot down a C-123 supplying the Contras.
It is Seal's involvement with Colombian cocaine traffickers that has made him a government target. Adding to his reputation as world-class drug smuggler was a conviction and long prison sentence handed down early this year in a major drug case in South Florida, labeled...
On board was Eugene Hasenfuss, who survived the crash, and told Nicaragua Aguan authorities that he thought the CIA was, in fact, behind the operation to supply the Contras.
Travels around the country in a Learjet. Seal owns a fleet of airplanes, including this huge C-123 cargo plane, which was used in the Nicaraguan mission in which he was involved.
This event, above all others, was what blew the Iran-Contra scandal wide open, since the C-123 that had been shot down was in fact Barry Seal's confiscated The Fat Lady, which was then being used by Oliver North and his covert operation through the CIA, DEA, and NSA. We all know what happened later with the very public Iran-Contra hearings with Marine Corps Lieutenant Colonel Oliver North as the key witness. Later, it was learned that Reaves and Seal had also worked with Fabio Oa Vasquez of the Medellin cartel in a side business, probably unknown to Escobar, who would have not thought very highly of that kind of deal. Oa Vasquez served nearly 6 years in a Colombian prison before his release in 1996, only to be rearrested in 1999 during a large-scale crackdown on drug lords and extradited to the USA, where he was recently released at age 67 from prison after completing a 25-year sentence and deported back to Colombia. Roger Reaves managed to survive Seal, despite being shot down twice, once bailing out into the Amazon jungle, wandering for 11 days, being tortured in a Mexican jail, etc. In his own words, he is an adventurous person serving over 33 years in various Honduran, German, Australian, and American prisons, and escaping various prisons 5 times.
Agents say a Colombian airstrip controlled by the Ochoa family was the first stop in the movement of cocaine destined for Louisiana. In fact, Seal and his crew narrowly escaped death when a plane overloaded with cocaine crashed and burned there. A second plane, provided by the Ochoa family and piloted by Seal, flew into Nicaragua and was damaged when accidentally fired on by Sandinista soldiers.
He was always supported by his very loyal wife, Mary, throughout all of these years of imprisonment. Reaves was always offered great deals to stay out of prison if he would just become a government witness like Seal had, but he never accepted the deals, hence the cartels never putting a hit on him. He kept their secrets. Estimates vary, but it is believed that Reaves and Seal alone were probably responsible for well over $10 billion in narcotics flooding into the United States, let alone other countries around the world.
Finally, last June 24th, Seal's C-123, rigged with cameras by the CIA, was flown to Nicaragua. As cameras snapped pictures, 1,400 pounds of cocaine was loaded onto the huge plane. The smuggling plot called for the drugs to be flown to a secret landing strip in Louisiana.
Almost as if in an attempt to remove any and all witnesses and parties concerned, many people died in the aftermath, and in 1993, Colombian and U.S. authorities, in a well-planned and coordinated operation, tracked down and killed Pablo Escobar at a house in Medellin in a shootout. The CIA, DEA, and State Department have each been implicated in various drug trafficking enterprises that were used to fund illegal covert operations and funding in nations all over the globe. Well, Seal and Escobar are dead. Reaves never turned snitch, and others are dead or still in prison, with exception to Oa Vasquez, who apparently never cut a deal either. All we can say is, just say no to drugs. Thank you for watching this episode of Forgotten History. If you liked what you saw, please click like, share, and subscribe. And if you would like to assist with the ever-increasing cost of production, please consider becoming a channel member and joining our Patreon page. Please check out our merchandise store. And thanks for watching.